So hey, and welcome back to Vita versus 3DS. As a response to some of the feedback that I've been getting on a couple of reviews that I've done, I want to go over exactly how I score games and my philosophy behind it, as well as give sort of a critique to what I feel is a sorry state of mind that many gamers have when approaching reviews with scores in them. First and foremost, I feel that too many gamers, especially nowadays, and I feel like this is a more recent thing with the internet and everything, too many gamers subscribe to the belief that anything under an 8 is a bad game or a mediocre game and is not worth playing. Um, I can say that, if anybody's read my descriptions or listened to the words I'm saying before I subscribe a score, as well as sites like IGN or, other sites that I know follow the exact same scheme that I do, there are a wide range of decent scores that aren't 8. Many sites view 5 as an average game, or 7 as a good game, which I definitely do. So that's what I wanted to say first. Also, I believe that, especially because many gamers do have that belief that anything under an 8 isn't worth playing, or anything under an 8 is a bad game. Many sites started sort of not exploring the scale. They give, they would only give an 8, 9, or 10 to a game to get someone to pay attention to it. And I think that we have a scale for a reason. We have, a 10 or a 20-point scale, and if we're not exploring it, and if exploring the scale isn't welcome, then we're going to run into a little bit of trouble here. Like, what's the point of having a 10-point scale if only 3 scores are relevant to people? Um, so I really wanted to just explain what all the 10 points mean in the scale. So first we have the 1 to 4 range. This range for me, anything between with a 1 range score up to a 4.9, is a bad game. These are bad games. These are games that I wouldn't recommend anybody who is like-minded, has the type of games, likes the type of games that I do. I recommend you don't play these games. I wouldn't recommend these games to anybody. I hate these games. Which is the only game I've actually scored this low on my channel was Mortal Kombat. And Mortal Kombat is one of the reasons why I'm making this video too, as well as Fire Emblem, but we're going to get into that. These are games that I don't recommend to anybody, and these are scores that I'm owning too. I know that Mortal Kombat did score a lot higher than the score I gave it on average, but of course it's my personal opinion, and these are games that I feel are bad, so anybody like-minded to my taste in games isn't going to enjoy this, in my opinion. So the next range of scores is the 5 to 6 range. So games that I've reviewed in this, of course, is it's going to be Need for Speed. 5 to 6 is an average game. Need for Speed I gave a 6.5. I just felt it was an average game. It didn't really stand out in any way, and it had some flaws that I just couldn't overlook, like the rubber banding. Rubber banding was just out of control, and some of the graphical issues with the headlights coming in. It was too pixelated and stuff like that. This is not a bad game. An average game is not a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. And basically, if I give a game a 5 to a 6, I'm saying please be wary of the problems I mentioned. But if these don't bother you, go get it, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying this is a bad game at all. And 5 and 6 is not necessarily a bad score. So the next score range is the 7 range score. So this is represented by some reviews I've done, such as Kid Icarus and Fire Emblem. So this is probably my most controversial review score if comments are anything to go by. And definitely because of what I mentioned earlier about anything under an 8 being a bad game. I cannot stress enough that 7 is a good score, and if you look in the info section of every video of my review, I have the score continuum there, and 7 is always has the words good next to it. And any review that I have with a 7 in it, I mentioned that it is a good game or a great game that's flawed. These are games that I definitely recommend to people. I gave Kid Icarus a 7. I want people to go out and buy Kid Icarus. I also said it was one of the best games on 3DS last year. 7 is a good score, and it's a good game. And yeah, I can't stress enough. I gave 7.5 to Fire Emblem, saying it was a very good game. I really liked Fire Emblem. It was great. It was, I had a great time with it. It was a very good game. It was just maybe a little bit away from great. Maybe if I felt it had some more voice acting, or didn't have that weird graphical issues with the feet, or some of the weird faces they had. If it was just a little tighter, a little more polished, it would have got that great score. But a good score is a good score, and it's a good game, and I'd recommend that to any strategy RPG fan. So yeah, so I can't stress enough, 7 is not a bad score. So, moving on to the 8 range. Games I reviewed in the 8 range are Gravity Rush and Kingdom Hearts. So, I can't stress enough again that 8 is a great score. These are games that when the system is long dead and someone picks it up late and says, hey, what good games did the 3DS have, or what good games did the Vita have? These are games that I'm going to say that recommend right away. These are great games for the system that I think all system owners should have. There are 2 ranges above it, of course, the 9 and the 10. And there are maybe little parts in there which I felt they could have done better. And that I have seen better in other games. And that's the reason why it didn't score as high as a 9 or a 10. So anyway, so now we're going to move on to the 9 range, which literally means amazing. So these 2 games here, Uncharted and Super Mario 3D Land, are games that I felt are amazing. Uncharted I gave a 9 to. I felt it was just amazing because of the graphical presentation, the animations, like in that series, are just unreal. Like, when you see Drake trip on a rock, or when he's getting shot at and he's ducking his head through everything, just the polish in those games is just so good. And although there were some missteps, like such as the swiping combat in the boss battles or some of the gestures and everything, those were so minor to me, and the game just was so polished and so good that it just made up for it. And for me, these games are just amazing, and these are the games at the top of the list I'd recommend 100% to anybody who owns the systems. Super Mario 3D Land, I give it 9.5 to. It's the highest score I've given a game on this channel. I love that game. It was just amazing. It blew my mind. It did something to me that I never thought would be done. It legitimized 3D in gaming. It gave it a reason to exist. And although I felt if it played up on that a little more, and maybe it offered a little more value, it would have got a 10. That would have been a 10 game. But it didn't. I look forward to the next one, and maybe that'll be my first 10 on the channel. But these 9 scores are amazing games. These are not like or like pretty good games that a lot of gamers they treat a 9 as a pretty good score, or a score that, okay, I got a 9, so I guess I'll pick it up. When I see a 9, I flip out. Like, that's a good game, and I really hope that you guys understand that now that 9s are going to start to become more rare on my channel, because these are really amazing. And now we have the next one, which I've never given a score to, is the 10 range, and it means masterpiece. These are games that define the systems that they're on. Not necessarily a flawless game, but it could have problems even. But it's just the polish or the quality or the experience is they're genre defining games. A 10, for example, which I haven't reviewed it yet. I never will. But for me, a 10 is, for example, Mario Galaxy, the first one. I've never played a game like that before. Or Uncharted 2. These games, or Call of Duty 4, like those games influence whole genres, and influenced dozens of games that come after. They were trendsetters, and that's a 10. And sometimes you don't really know a game's a 10 until months after, which is why I tend to digest on my games a little more. So yeah, anyway, that's where I'm coming from. I hope that you guys at least understand that now. And again, I can't stress enough the really important thing here is that a 7, the 7 range, is not a bad score. It's a good score for good games. If you feel that 7's a bad score, then just pretend it's an 8, pretend it's a 9, or however what you think a good game is. But for me, maybe don't pay attention to the score. Maybe look at the scale and see that 7 means good. So all I'm saying is that it's good. So anyway, so that's my philosophy behind it. I really hope more people would stop treating 8, 9s, and 10s like they're the only scores that matter. But of course, I know that I can't change the world here. So anyway. That's it. So I hope that you guys understand a little more about how I review games now. So that's the point of this video, and I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks.